Welcome to Books in Minutes. Today, we're exploring one of the most fascinating and mind-bending novels ever written, Sophie's World by Jostein Gaarder. This book isn't just a story, it's also a crash course in the entire history of philosophy. Imagine being 14 years old and suddenly receiving mysterious letters in your mailbox. Each one asks a deep question, like, "Who are you?" or "Where does the world come from?" What starts as a puzzle soon grows into an adventure that takes us from ancient Greece to modern philosophy, and eventually into a shocking twist about reality itself. So, sit back as we break down Sophie's World, a story that teaches us philosophy through mystery and storytelling. Our story begins with Sophie Amundsen, a 14-year-old girl living in Norway. One ordinary day, Sophie finds a plain white envelope in her mailbox. Inside, a card with just 3 words: "Who are you?" The next day, another envelope arrives. "Where does the world come from?" Sophie is puzzled, but intrigued. These aren't ordinary questions. They're the kind of questions children ask, but adults often forget. Soon, Sophie receives an even stranger package, a full philosophy course written by a mysterious teacher named Alberto Knox. Through these lessons, Sophie begins learning about the history of philosophy. But at the same time, something odd is happening. Another girl's name keeps appearing in the background of her story: Hilda. Who is she, and why is she connected to Sophie? Alberto's first lessons take Sophie back to ancient Greece, the birthplace of philosophy. She learns about the pre-Socratic philosophers, early thinkers who tried to explain the world without relying on myths. Thales believed everything was made of water. Heraclitus said the world is always changing, like fire, and you can't step into the same river twice. Parmenides disagreed, arguing that change is an illusion and reality is eternal. Then comes Socrates, the great questioner. Instead of giving answers, he asked more questions, forcing people to think for themselves. His method, called the Socratic dialogue, laid the foundation of philosophy itself. Sophie is struck by Socrates' bravery. He questioned authority even at the cost of his own life, proving that philosophy is not just about ideas, but also about courage. Next, Sophie learns about Plato, Socrates' most famous student. Plato believed in the theory of forms, the idea that everything in our world is just a shadow of a higher, perfect reality. For example, every circle we draw is imperfect, but the idea of a perfect circle exists beyond our world. Plato explained this through his famous allegory of the cave. He said we live like prisoners, seeing only shadows on the wall, while the real truth lies outside the cave. Then comes Aristotle, Plato's student, but also his critic. Aristotle turned his attention to the natural world. He believed knowledge comes from observing reality, classifying things, and using logic. Together, Plato and Aristotle shaped the foundation of Western thought. Sophie realizes their debate, idealism versus realism, still shapes how we see the world today. The lessons then move to the Middle Ages, when philosophy became closely tied to religion. St. Augustine combined Plato's ideas with Christianity, teaching that true happiness is found in God. Thomas Aquinas followed later, blending Aristotle with Christian theology, showing that faith and reason could work together. Then comes the Renaissance, an age of rebirth. Human beings moved back into the spotlight. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci and scientists like Copernicus and Galileo pushed boundaries, rediscovering curiosity and questioning old dogmas. Philosophy wasn't just about heaven anymore. It was also about life on Earth. As Sophie continues, Alberto introduces her to modern thinkers of the Enlightenment and beyond. René Descartes begins with radical doubt. He doubts everything until he finds one certainty. I think, therefore I am. Spinoza sees God in everything, blurring the line between creator and creation. John Locke and David Hume explore empiricism, the idea that knowledge comes from experience. Then Immanuel Kant combines reason and experience, arguing that while we can never know reality in itself, our minds shape how we perceive it. These philosophers show Sophie that philosophy isn't static. It's an ongoing conversation where each generation responds to the questions of the past. But as Sophie studies philosophy, her own life becomes stranger. She and Alberto begin to suspect that their world is not real. Objects act oddly, events feel controlled, and they notice clues pointing to someone else's hand in their story. Finally, the truth is revealed. Sophie and Alberto are fictional characters created by a man named Albert Nag. He is writing their story as a birthday gift for his daughter Hilda, the mysterious name Sophie kept encountering. This twist turns the book upside down. Sophie isn't just learning about philosophy, she is a philosophical question. If she's fictional, what does it mean for her to exist? Now aware of their situation, Sophie and Alberto plan to escape Albert Nag's control. Through clever tricks, they break free, at least partially, into a reality beyond their offer. Meanwhile, Hilda reads Sophie's story and becomes fascinated, both by philosophy and by Sophie's struggle for freedom. The boundary between story and reality collapses. Who is real? Who is imagined? And could we too be part of a story written by someone else? So what does Sophie's world actually mean? On one level, it's a fun introduction to the history of philosophy, told through a gripping story. But on a deeper level, it's about existence itself. Are we like Sophie, living inside a story we don't fully control? What does it mean to be real? Is philosophy the only way to break free of our cave? Gaarder doesn't give us clear answers because philosophy isn't about final truths. It's about never stopping the questions. And that was the journey through Sophie's World by Jostein Gaarder, exploring philosophy from Socrates to Sartre and unraveling the mystery of reality itself. If you enjoyed the summary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Books in Minutes, where we bring you the world's greatest books in simple, engaging summaries. And remember, stay curious, because the biggest questions often lead to the best adventures.